Hello and welcome to another episode of Early Years Insights with me, Kathy Leatherbarrow from Eden. And today I have got Lewis Staper from the Oliver Staper Foundation and Laura Salmon from the Banana Moose franchise. So welcome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And obviously today we're going to talk all about the foundation. It's very close to Banana Moon's heart as it is to us at Eden as well. Mm-hmm. And would you like to tell Oliver's story, Lewis?
Yeah,
and,
sure, absolutely. So,
you know, how it was formed.
So Oliver was obviously born a nice, healthy young baby, our first child, and absolutely threw us into the world of unknown in children, slap bang in the middle of COVID as well. So it was a unique experience. But then he got to obviously 9 months, and we was looking around putting him into nurseries. We went on a few show rounds around various nurseries, and then we came across the nursery that we eventually chose, and he went in, and we came out happy every time. It was absolutely fine. And then on the 21st of September 2021, we got the phone call that no parent ever wants to receive, saying just to let you know he's choked, he's okay. Just come down as quick as you can. So I was actually 2 hours away at Stansted Airport, filming, funnily enough, a TV advert for a well-known airline, and my phone was ringing mad. And my policy with my own stuff is if I fly drones, you see, for a living. So my policy with that is if there's drones in the air, I don't answer the phone. Yeah. And it was just going and going, and I thought something's not right. So in the end, I picked the phone up, and it was my wife Zoe, and I answered the phone, and it was just a scream, and I couldn't get anything. I didn't know what was going on. I thought we was being robbed. I thought she was being mugged. I had no clue what's going on. And then the phone cut off, and I just thought, I said to the guy at security, I said, I've got to get home. I've got to go. Sorry. So I packed the stuff away. They were very kindly enough to let me out of the access gate rather than going back through security and everything else, because something went right. And then the paramedic phoned me. So we'd got there, and the paramedic phoned me, and obviously then I understood. She said, "Oh, he's choked on food," and I remember saying, "It's not looking good."
Oh God!
And I was like, "Oh, right, okay. I'm literally I'm still 2 hours away. Do everything you can." I then phoned my mum, naturally.
We always
You see, I seem to phone my mum when random things happen, like the guinea pig died, and so I think she was kind of expecting a phone call for, But and anyway, I managed to get back to Kent. It took me, I think it was an hour and a half just to get back to Dartford. The traffic was just insane, and I'm trying to keep calm and composed, and luckily I've got friends in Kent Police, so I managed to get hold of them, and they eventually put me in a patrol car and blue lighted me down to the Harvey. That was 2.5 hours to get back to the Harvey, and I just remember walking in, and they said I was in resus, and I just remember that's not good. No. And I just knew that's not good. So I found Zoe in resus, and her mum was there, her dad was there, and she says, "Do you want to see him?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I do." It was just she was in shock. She'd been dealing with for like 2.5 hours already while I've been trying to get home. And I remember I went into the room where he was, and he was just like literally laid, and there was just lines coming out of him, and I literally, my world just fell apart,
crumbled.
I didn't know what to do. But they said we're doing everything we can, and then it kind of got to the point where me and Zoe went out of the room just because we wanted to let the doctors focus on whatever they were doing. We didn't know what was going on, if you know what I mean. And then they came to speak to us and said, "Look, we don't have the capabilities to deal with his injuries here." At this point, we still thought this is still just he's choked on food, it's an accident, and we just kind of rolled with it. And then they told us we don't have this thing here. We're going to look at an air ambulance to get you to London. And then it was decided we can't go in the ambulance because they don't have the relevant stuff in the helicopter to deal with it. Like, because his temperature was 50 odd degrees, his heartbeat was 300 and something. Wow. We didn't know at the time. We just thought, they're trying to sort it, but obviously that was a sign where the brain was so damaged the body couldn't regulate itself, and we didn't know that. And then it was decided they're going to put us in a land ambulance. So they sent a specialist children's ambulance from the Evelina. That came. It was about 2 hours later. That came. Then they spent about 3 hours trying to stabilise him before we were then told we're going to the Evelina. He's probably not going to survive the transfer. But we're going to obviously do the best. He was on a nitrogen mat to try and keep his temperature down and everything. And I was still so vivid, I remember everything. I remember coming out, we got into the ambulance, and there was a funny story behind that as well. They told us that we couldn't go in the ambulance originally because of COVID.
Oh, right, okay.
So we'd have to either make our own way, and I was like, I can't do it.
No.
And in the end, they said, look, just get in. Because I think they realised how serious it was. So we got out of the hospital, and they said, look, if we have to stop, we will just stop in the middle of the motorway, his priority. And we got up to the first roundabout, and she yelled stop. I was like, oh no, and it just set us both off. And turns out his catheter had fallen out. So I was like, oh my God. Anyway, we made it to London, and this was 7 o'clock at night, and bear in mind he choked at 10:30 in the morning, so there was quite an extensive time. They were trying.
Day of your
oh
life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm still dressed in bright orange, like this from head to toe. Just look, and you just forget everything around you, We got to London, and I remember us. Didn't know where we were. Never, personally, I'd never heard of the Evelina before, anything like that. So we ended up at this hospital. We got taken up onto a ward, and we all sat in this. Basically, it was almost like a cubicle, a square cubicle, because he was obviously not tested for COVID or anything like that. We were put into this isolation cube, and we were told to sit down on some seats at the back, which we did. And there must have been about 30 people in there just rushing round. And the best way I describe it was like a scene from The Matrix, where we're literally sat there in slow motion, and everything is just a blur around you. Yeah. And then I'll never forget out of this crowd of people, a lady who was called Shelley Rip-Hagan, and honestly, she's the most amazing woman ever. She turned out of this crowd and said, "You need to prepare yourself. He's not going to survive." And I just thought, wow, how do you know that? And I was asking, well, you haven't scanned him, but they knew, from there. She's like 30 odd years doing this, so she knew the damage was done. At the time, I wanted to throttle her almost, because I thought,
how dare you say that?
Yeah,
give up on him.
Do you know what I mean? And looking back, and obviously now we've got a good relationship with her from that, it was the best thing she could have done for us. Yeah. Like expectation management. It was...
Feels brutal at the time.
Oh, absolutely. It was as brutal as anything, but it didn't lead us into false hope. Yeah. And then throughout that week, we prepared, because we kind of knew there was no chance of survival. We had him for another, I think it was 5 days. Right. But we kind of I think it was like on the Saturday, his eyes stopped responding to light. So at that point, they said, "Look, he's gone." So then the way we dealt with it was by saying, he's gone, and we're now looking after the spaceship. That's how we dealt with it.
Yeah.
And then from that point, it kind of became a bit easier, because it's almost like you think that the suffering's, not that there was any suffering, so to speak, because he never woke up from the point he choked.
But he's not feeling pain.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. And there was the team around him were just phenomenal. Right. And I think people not even connected to that ward, there was doctors coming to see us, just, because they'd heard about Oliver. And it was amazing.
Even then. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And the team there were not even... There was doctors coming to see how we were. Not connected to Oliver or anything. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was like, have you been sent for us? She's like, no, we just heard and we want to come and, support you, and it was incredible what they did.
Wow. And such a difficult time, I presume, for them as well, with COVID
absolutely.
going on. And,
absolutely.
The unpredictability.
We were going to a second wave at that point.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the unpredictability of, health in general.
I remember ringing my mum is 4 hours away up in Scunthorpe, and, and she was like, I'm coming, know. And when they got there, they weren't allowed in.
Oh.
Because of COVID. They said, I'm sorry, but we've got rules, and my mum went a bit nuts, naturally, because obviously we knew at that point he wasn't going to survive. So, and the hospital was so good. They went all the way to the top and said, it's not good. Can we do something, and they agreed that as long as they did tests and they were negative, that they could come and spend, and literally it was like 15 minutes. But given what was going on around us,
treasured.
Yeah, absolutely.
15 minutes.
Absolutely.
15 minutes that'll stay with them.
Absolutely.
It probably meant the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then they were all obviously then they retreated back to the family room, and then we were, going out giving updates and bits and bobs, and then I'll never forget it. But there was two ladies that came and sat on the bed next to her. It was like the day before we'd planned that was going to be it. They'd tried to take him off the machine to see if he would cope.
Yeah.
They tried that, and he literally just started crashing straight away. So that was how we knew, there was going to be no chance of a survival going forward just from that. And then these two ladies came and sat next to us, and it's probably the worst point for me because I think everything had just hit me. In that 5 minutes, everything just came at the wrong time. Yeah. These two lovely ladies came and sat next to me and said, Mr. Steeper, have you ever considered organ donation?
Oh.
And I shouted at her. I said, what a time to ask, what a time in my life to ask me if I want to be an organ donor. And she said, no, not you, Mr. Steeper, Oliver. I was like, what?
That's real bad timing reminder of the trauma you're already going through.
Yeah, absolutely. But, now I look back and think, what an amazing people they are to come and do that, at
your lowest moment.
Yeah. And I looked at Zoe, and she looked at me, and we didn't even say a word. We just both looked at the nurse and said yes. At that point, then we knew something wasn't right with the nursery. We'd got an email we got an email on the Saturday night from why they didn't take us off the global mailing list or whatever you want to call it. I don't know.
Or press pause. Or...
Yeah. But they sent an email out to all the parents because it said, "Dear parents, sorry we had to close early on Thursday, and this will stick with me for the rest of my life. This was because one of our staff contracted COVID."
Pardon?
Exactly. We'd got that, and the way we got that was we'd not left Oliver's bedside, we'd not slept. Since getting there on the Thursday, we were like zombies. Then Gemma, one of the nurses there, said to us, look, I'm here, go outside, just get some fresh air, if anything changes, I will ring you instantly. So we reluctantly, went outside, and we found our way. Then security wasn't going to let us out because it was like 11 o'clock at night. And so we had to explain, we was up on the Forest Ward and the Evelina and stuff. And he's like, yeah, okay. And I said, no, because that entrance is closed, but we didn't want to be out the front where everyone else was, So we went, and luckily he let us out. And both our phones pinged off at the same time when we got outside. So we just got a signal. And I was like, and then we literally read it, and we were silent. We was in disbelief. How can you effectively try and cover up?
Well, lie to the people
do you know what I mean?
You with their children.
And then I've still got the email on my phone to this day because I still revisit it, and just when I'm feeling angry, I revisit it, and it just takes some stress away. But and I just thought, and Zoe was in tears, bless her. She was how can they do this? And that was the first point we realised
that something's not
sat right. Yeah, why would you do that? I mean, we'd had a bit of downtime in the hospital around his bedside. You fall back into ordinary life quite quickly, even though what's going on around you, because you've got people messaging you, so Facebook,
Because people are still reliant on you to function.
yeah, exactly. And I remember we were both sat there, and I think they took him away to do a bronchoscopy. They didn't want us to see that because it's quite an invasive procedure, so they took him away to do that. They pushed us away. They did it where he was, and they took us out, and we were sat there just looking at Facebook, and we found all the, like, on the local Ashford groups that we're all members of anyway. Or boy choked on an apple, and we couldn't say anything. We didn't want to write anything to correct the story or anything like that. But then on the bottom of that email that was sent, it said, "We'll be opening again on Monday as normal," and I went nuts. I thought, how can you do that? And I remember going back upstairs and speaking to Gemma, and I was in bits. And I said to her, I'm literally going to go, I'm going to get my, because we went in the ambulance, I got no vehicles or anything. And I said, I'm going to go to that nursery on Monday morning, and I'm going to stand outside there and tell every parent what's gone on, because I think they've got a right to know. It's not because of bloody COVID. And luckily that's when I managed to get hold of the police at, I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, because we got a contact by then. Because it was
a liaison officer.
Yeah, well, it was a detective from Kent.
Right.
Because of, obviously, it was a safeguarding issue in a nursery. They're automatically notified. So then they didn't have my number directly, but they were ringing the hospital once an hour saying, what's he doing?
Yeah.
And all the hospital would say was he's life critical. They didn't want. I don't think they told them that there was no chance of survival. It was only when somehow the police got my number on the Saturday night when the detectives phoned me and said, "Oh, what's the prognosis?" And I thought, well, you should know that. And she said, "Oh, we've not been told anything. We've just been told he's life critical." I said, "He's not going to survive." And at that point, everything changed. They sent a police to London. It was weird because now we see it wasn't, but at the time it's like we're suspects. They're coming to get a witness statement from us.
You just
it's like we weren't
instantly nervous and anxious about
absolutely,
it.
absolutely. And this lovely lady called Kate came up, and she was the most loveliest woman ever. And she said, "I want to meet Ollie," and we took her in, and and because she did a test, a COVID test and everything, and that sticks with me now, because that was the first person from the outside we'd seen, if that makes sense, apart from parents. And and then just after that, things just started snowballing. We got bits and bobs and more information that wasn't right, and we got a statement from it was said, he was only eating pasta. He was eating mince, but when they did the bronchoscopies, the only thing they pulled out of him was pasta. There was not a shred of mince in him at all. And that kind of, it didn't sit right with us whatsoever, And then we got to the end. And
I presume this is just all adding to your anxiety,
absolutely,
and your grief, and
because we didn't know what to think.
Being honest, something tragic has really happened.
Exactly. Yeah, we didn't know what to think.
With us.
Yeah. We didn't know what to think or what to do, and there was nothing we could have actually done at that point. I remember once I got the email talking to the police, and she was like, "Well, I'll ring Ofsted, and we'll speak to Ofsted and see what happened." And then on the Monday, there was we got a letter, an email from Ofsted saying that there's a mandatory, I think it was 6 weeks or 9 weeks closure put on because of the thing, which then stopped me going on the Monday as I would have done.
And closing it single-handedly.
Yeah. And then we got another email from the nursery saying they were going to get lawyers involved to fight it. And I'm like, where do they stop?
But why would they send that to you?
Well, exactly.
It's not you that have done that.
We had to go to the police and tell the police to literally stop contacting us, because you're just driving us into the ground. And thankfully the police came back and said, "Look, we've told them, that's it, it's going to stop." And then we just had 2 or 3 normal days then, as normal as can be, and because he was never conscious, he couldn't eat, he never moved at all. So we're just kind of.
Did he look like Ollie?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that was one of the hardest things about the whole experience. There was no visible injury.
Yeah.
Had there have been bruises, had there have been blood, scar, cuts, you can work with that
Yeah.
because you can see something. But choking, and it's one of the biggest things that sticks for me from this. You cannot see. There's no signs.
No.
You know, and he just looked like Ollie did.
Yeah.
I mean, when a child is choking, it can be silent as well.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it's a silent, serious thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
You
not
know,
only is
and
it silent in the moment, the aftermath of that looks silent as
Mhm.
well.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, and I think that was, like I said, that one of the hardest things to deal with. The fact
'Cause
that
he just
there was,
looked asleep.
yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and he had his crazy hair because he was due a haircut. You know, but one thing that everyone remembers him by was his crazy hair,
Oh.
and I don't know where he got it from.
You obviously.
Yeah, you know, but he just had this. You know, he never seemed to stick down. It was just like a lion's mane type thing. You know, and so he retained that all the way through, and then it come to the, let's say, second last day when the organ donation people had come in. Then it had to go to the police. And it had to go to the coroner because at that point they realised, there's going to have to be an investigation to this.
Yeah.
So it was deemed, because of feedback that had come from the nursery, they had to do a home office postmortem, which is all the organs come out, the brain comes out, and
it's very
everything. And
invasive.
we didn't really process that. We just thought that's what happens.
Yeah. He's going to be looked after.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And it was, we just rolled with it. And then they came back, and the coroner was quite strict in what they could. I don't know what the word is. Take.
Yeah.
From him.
They're very descriptive.
Yeah, because of certain things that had been said to the police and that. So they said, you can't take his lungs, you can't take his heart. They offered us eyes, and we didn't. I don't know. We just, that didn't sit right with us. We wanted him to just keep.
It's the most common thing left off with organ.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And
it's just
something
just seems odd. Doesn't it?
It's a window to them, isn't it? And I think that's why it just feels so.
It's like all the pictures and stuff we've got of him.
Yeah.
All got eyes in.
Yeah, well, you focus on his eyes when you look at him, don't you?
Yeah.
We got this massive, I think it's like 6 foot wide picture in the front room of him and stuff. So it kind of sat with us that we wanted just to keep that. And then the coroner came back. It was the Lambeth coroner came back and said the only thing you can take are his kidneys and his liver.
Okay.
Everything else has to be kept. So we were instantly like yes. And I've never seen such a streamlined process in such grand scale. They came to us and said, look, this is what's going to happen when he does pass. You get a minute. Literally, you get. But they explained, and I'm all for it. You get a minute with him, and then someone's going to come in and they're going to run with him like Linford Christie, because the quicker they can get it out, the better it is for the recipient.
Yeah.
At this point, it took them, it was 24 hours or so to find a suitable donor for whatever they were trying to find. At that point, we didn't know who it was. We didn't know where it was going. Didn't even know if it was compatible
with anybody
or anything, and it was such a surreal process. Then we found out that they were actually going to fly a surgical team from Leeds to London just to specifically carry out this operation on Ollie. And I was like, wow, we're kind of thrown into this. I just thought that he'd be taken to a theatre and
those organs
would be done,
removed, and it'd be put on ice. And
it would be done, but they didn't.
Yeah.
They flew a specialist surgical team by helicopter to London to just perform this, and then we were given warning. Obviously, when the machines were turned off, it would either be quite quick or quite long. Right. And we kind of they kind of said to us, because if the body gets into a regular, even though there's no brain, because they'd done the brainstem testing, it'd gone, they'd done the scan and everything, the body can still regulate itself if it's in a rhythm, and like the people at the Evelina, the nurses said, we've had children that have passed away.
Like muscle memory, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've had people that have passed away that have gone on, the child's gone on to live like 2 more days.
Gosh.
And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to deal with that.
Gosh.
I don't know. And luckily they said, because of what they'd done earlier with the test, they think it would be quite quick. And I think it was 6 minutes or something like that when the end came. And then literally, she wasn't kidding. We got the minute, And then this lady, I can't remember her name, but she said, "I'm really sorry." And we literally held him out because we held him while he passed away. And she just ran. And we thought that was it. We thought that was it. So we then went back downstairs where the family were. They knew the next time we obviously come down, that was it. And so we went down, and obviously everyone had hugs, and Dad was like, do you want a chicken sandwich? You know?
Chicken sandwich. Oh my goodness.
Have you been able to eat a chicken sandwich since?
I was hungry.
You were.
Do you know what I mean? But I didn't know what we was doing. And the awful bit was because of where they were only allowed to be because of COVID, we had to walk, and it was like a 20-minute walk from where we were. We literally had to plough through just everyday people at the hospital because
You had no idea.
It was like 10:30 in the morning, and we was in bits.
Yeah.
Trying to get back to
Family and
where
support,
they're in the cafe downstairs, you know, and people just looking at us, and I had no care in the world
No.
because I just thought if you knew, you wouldn't say a word. So we just ploughed on through, and then we got the phone call to say he's back. I was like, what? He's back, and she said, oh yeah, it's been done. It's about an hour and a half later. Do you want to see him? And obviously we naturally, yes, absolutely. So we then went back up to the ward, just me and Zoe, and they said, look, you can give him a bed bath, you can put him in his favourite pyjamas, his Hey Dougie stuff he loved, and and we kind of had half an hour. That was out. They said you've got as long as you need, and I remember we gave him a bed bath, and we did some other bits and bobs. We did like a hand print and like a clay thing and stuff. And then I said to Zoe, if we stay in there any longer, we're just going to torture ourselves.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I didn't know what to do. It's weird because I always say to Zoe now, I hope no one ever has to be in that position. But unfortunately, there will be.
Yeah.
And so we said goodbye. We come out of the room. And I said to Zoe, I remember saying, we can't go back in. You know, once we're out, we got to make that line. And I remember being stood in the corridor, and this nurse walked past, and I said, what do we do now? She went, you go home. And that was how blunt it is.
That's the place you wanted to go, really.
Yeah, you know.
But equally, probably wanted to be home too.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. And I just remember saying to Zoe, I said, well, we better go home then. You know, and it was so hard just to walk away. And we did it. We went back downstairs and obviously said to the family, you know, it's all done, and they took his kidneys, they took his liver, and you know, all the doctors were coming down to us and saying, you know, you guys are amazing, and I didn't feel like we'd done anything, but we knew all he had. Oh God, I never expected to be this emotional. And yeah, so we went back downstairs and obviously saw parents, and they said, do you want to stay? And we said no, and then for whatever reason we ended up walking around London. You know, I mean, I think it was I get it. You know, it's our parents' way of saying, you know, let's take your mind off it, you know, and let's just normalise before you go home. Because we'd said when we get home, we just want to be on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a bit of not a bad thing from the police, because they said, when you go home, don't touch anything. And I was like, why? She said, because we need to come round and do photographs, evidence. And I'm thinking, and I was shocked. I was taken back by it.
I'm a bit shocked about that.
And I couldn't understand it. And it was only when, like a couple of hours later, that she phoned back and she said, I think I've explained it wrong. I want to explain why. And she said, if this does go into a full investigation, we need the evidence that Oliver had a good home life. So he wasn't like sleeping on the floor, on a mattress, or, you know, bits and bobs. So it, you know, and I felt awful like I was being accused of something. You know, he had a wonderful life. You know, we tried to provide everything we could.
But I struggle with that.
Yeah, you know,
Struggle to understand what the need is.
Yeah, I
because the
struggle with
accusation
that
here
because,
is
you know,
the safety practices.
if he's a-
that led to it.
Yeah.
If he was a child in poverty,
Yeah,
and things were really tough,
absolutely,
would that make a difference?
Well, no, it wouldn't, does it?
No,
Because
well,
it didn't happen at home,
Yeah.
and we were not there when it happened. But we had to roll with it because
Yeah.
we was in a world of unknown.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
I
just
think if it had happened at home, you would understand
absolutely,
that.
yeah,
It would make more
absolutely, yeah.
sense.
But they said to us, you can't if there's like even if there's like a bottle of milk that's spilled over, don't touch it. You know, so like we spent another night in London and we ended up getting a hotel. Parents kindly paid for another hotel, just to like normalise before we went back, and because we knew about what the police had said about moving things, so they kept us there for another night. And we then obviously went home. And we kind of just said goodbye to parents, and like we just leave us alone for a couple of days, you know, and we just need to sort ourselves out and come to terms with what we've just done. And we just sat there. We went on the sofa and we just cried our eyes out.
Yeah.
Because there was a bottle there which still had
Ollie's
stuff in
bottle,
it, you know, a bit of juice or whatever it was, and his chairs and his toys. And it was, I think that was on the Friday, and the police were due to come on the Tuesday. They told us they were going to come on the Tuesday. And it was hell. Absolute hell. And then when they did come on Tuesday, the two detectives came to the door, and I said, "Oh, is your camera guy coming?" Because it was like a living nightmare for us, just being forced to look at stuff, you know. And she said, "Oh, we're not going to bother now."
Oh my goodness.
So you've gone from Friday to Tuesday,
yeah.
not being able to touch anything.
Yeah. Other than our own, you know, you could move the kettle or make a cup of tea or whatever. But if it was
getting
his,
your own bed. And,
yeah. And
wow.
I was really angry, but I never showed it. I just thought, okay, whatever. You know, we've got through that. But the moment they left that day, what we did, and we didn't. I don't think we knew what we was doing. But I said to Zoe, the only thing in my mind, and I hadn't Googled it, I hadn't spoken to anyone, but the best thing we could have done was make a neutral room. So we decided that the front room was going to be the neutral room because that's where we spend most of our time. So we cleared toys, you know, we put things away. Wherever there was a toy on a shelf, we put a picture of him, you know, and stuff like that. And that was one of the best things I think we did for us.
Yeah.
Because we had somewhere where we could go where we're not staring at stuff, if that makes sense. We didn't actually go back in his bedroom for, I don't know, 2-3 months maybe. Other than just to, you know, make sure everything's there. But we didn't touch anything. We didn't move his blanket or his dummies because we didn't want to.
No, I totally understand.
Solly's room still as it was now.
Yes, but Jake's in it now. Oh. So yeah. We changed all that. We changed the bed because we thought that was the right thing to do. But the rest of the furniture we kept for Jake. Nice. Because Jake, obviously was planned, and I think the awful thing is that we'd always planned to have one child, so Ollie would have been our own. And then obviously when Ollie passed, we said no more. We said, you know, whatever. But it was soon apparent there was this massive gap in the house.
And you still had a lot of love to give.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, so we tried for another, and first time, I was like, and then Jake came along, you know, and that process was hard.
Yeah,
I can imagine you feeling very torn.
That process was very hard, and don't get me wrong, we had, you know, not specialist support or any, but people knew the story because of what happened. It happened in Ashford, and obviously Zoe's pregnant again in Ashford. So as soon as you go to somewhere, you know, I used to go to Tesco, and people used to stop me and say, "I'm so sorry, I've no idea who these people are," but because I've been plastered all over the news, you know, and everything, people recognise you, and you know, they're that couple.
People feel compelled to let you know.
Yeah, you know, and we was getting so much help. You
That's
know,
nice.
from people like just the midwives. Obviously, they knew who we were, but they were going the extra mile for it, and that was incredible. And when it came to the actual birth, I'd psyched my son up. I was like, I'm not going to cry, because with Ollie, I cried my eyes out, and I'd said I weren't going to cry. I'm big, I'm strong, you know. And
but the taps.
Oh God, it got me. It got me somewhat rotten. And then We went into Zoe was given the option whether we had a due date, so they did all the I can't remember whether they try and force the birth. I can't remember. Induction. That's it. Wasn't working. So in the end, they said it was going to be a C-section.
Right.
So Zoe chose to have the C-section. So we planned all that, and the hospital were just amazing with us.
That's nice.
Just all the doctors, come in and we said, "Oh, we remember you from last time," and that's that. Was we that bad, But they all knew the story, And when it came to the actual birthday, it was so nice.
Oh.
They were absolutely lovely with us, and I'm sure they are with everyone else, but it just felt special for us,
That's how it should feel.
Yeah.
It definitely should feel like that.
And I went into theatre in these.
In your scrubs.
Oh, they couldn't find me some scrubs because I'm obviously a larger chap. They couldn't find me some scrubs, and I think these scrubs they found me were like 12XL. They were huge. Anyway, needless to say, all the surgeons had a very good laugh out of me that day. And so
it's quite a surreal experience, isn't it? When you put those scrubs on. Cause I had a cesarean, so I know myself. And you're putting the scrubs on going in. I remember my surgeon was because it was an emergency section. My surgeon was still eating his dinner when he got full, and he came into surgery. And there was just like curry down his scrub, and that's all I was looking at. And then I was like, "This is so bizarre."
I remember Ollie's was an emergency section, and that came. He was obviously, and I was in my scrubs then, and I'm quite the comedian, so I was like, I walked in, I went, "Scalpel, please," kind of thing, and they all laughed at me and went, "Sit down." Probably heard it a million times, And then, but when it came to Jake's birth, I remember we went in and we sat down, and it got to, Zoe was obviously laid on the bed, and I sat next to her, and it just hit me, and I just started crying.
Did you know you were having another little boy?
Yeah, we knew it was a boy. Yeah. We didn't tell parents though this time because we wanted it to be a bit more special for them.
Yeah.
So we didn't say a word. We didn't say names. We didn't say obviously anything.
Did that bring its own dilemmas as well? Having another little boy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we'd hoped for a girl.
Yeah.
But I think if we'd have had a girl, it'd have made things certainly mentally a bit more easier for us. But when obviously Jake was born, they said, "Do you want to come?" And obviously they got him out and said, "Do you want to come and see him?" And I was inconsolable because it just took me straight back to Ollie's birth.
Yeah.
It looked the same,
Sounded the same.
Oh yeah.
But
I'll never forget when I went in. It's probably going to make me go, but when I went in to the room where Jake was, the nurse was checking him over, counting his toes and everything they do. And I put my little finger in, and Jake grabbed it.
Oh.
It was so special.
Yeah.
And now he's just a little brat.
How old is he now?
Oh, he's coming up 3 now.
Well, there we
So,
go.
Oh, wow.
Personality's in full force.
Yeah, we've had the terrible ones, the terrible 2s, and now we're going through the terrible 3s. But he's just a bundle of joy.
Oh.
The first 9 months was probably the hardest thing I've ever done because he just looked, sounded, was the same as Ollie.
Yeah.
And I think that's what brought me and Zoe closer together because we were just trying to get each other through that bit.
Yeah.
Once 9 months came, we said it's probably going to be a weight off your shoulders, because
the personality starts forming.
Yeah, absolutely, and once we got through that 9 months, it was like we was in this free world, just a massive weight had been lifted from the shoulders, and and we'd vowed never to put him in another nursery because of what happened at our nursery and bits and bobs, but in the end, life just catches up with you. You don't get a choice.
No.
So as funny, I was actually walking around Tesco, funnily enough, and this lady stopped me called Emma, and she went, "Oh, I lived a few doors down for you when I'm a registered childminder."
Wow.
And I was like, "I don't know who you are, but thank you." And
tell me more.
But I dismissed it at the time because I think mine and Zoe's plans were one of us was just going to have to stop working, to look after him through that that first period. But because I'm self-employed, literally after Ollie died, I was back at work 2 weeks later.
Gosh.
I had no choice. Bills have got to be paid. There's no support for me You know, Zoe works for Kent Fire, and they were very, very good with her in terms of keeping her wage. You know, said you need as long as you take, you're on full pay. You know, and then it drops after like a year. You know, and stuff. So that was just incredible what they did for her. But for me, there was nothing. You know, I literally got thrown in the dark with that. Quite, you know, and I remember going to.
It's another brutal reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, it hits you. Yeah. Life's going on and you're not ready to go on.
You know, I wrote to my MP to see if there's anything, you know, and he was like, there's nothing.
Wow.
You know, there's no, I looked at for charities and stuff like that, you know, and I just
some help.
And there was nothing. For me as like a limited company director, just me on my own, you know, there is nothing. You know, there's no, there's obviously sick pay, you know, you can claim, but I didn't see the point. If I'm, you know, for 80 quid a fortnight or whatever it is, there's just no point.
Just crack on.
Yeah. So and to be honest, that was the best thing that I did.
Did you need that, like?
Yeah. Because I was forcing myself to be normal.
Yeah.
You know, and so I remember the first site I went back to, it was a building site. And when I walked onto this site, they knew I was coming. It was like a ghost town.
Really?
And it was like people were twitching at the curtains to see if I was there, you know. And I remember, and I stood in the middle of this site, and I said, for God's sake, someone just come and give me a hug. And then slowly but surely, they didn't know what to say to me.
No, that's
you know.
Isn't it?
But I think the reality is there's no words that can make the situation better. So people just worry that they're going to say the wrong thing.
And they don't want to upset you anymore.
No, that's it, you know. And then
it's quite a British
response.
Yeah. Stiff upper lip and grab a cup of tea, isn't it?
That's it. You know.
I'll fix the world, cup of tea.
Yeah. And after that, you know, then we all had a good cry and, you know, and bits and bobs. And then I felt more confident going out. But Zoe, because obviously they'd said, you're not coming back to work, she was sat staring at the four walls.
She's a bit stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and that really did hit her hard. You know, she was trying to do things with friends, but friends are working.
Yeah.
It's hard to find people that want to do stuff with you and talk about things, you know, and if they want to, obviously.
Yeah, and sit through those uncomfortable moments.
You know, and Zoe then was offered counselling via the doctors and everything, so she took that up, and I think that was really good because that did help her forward quite a bit. And then I think it was about a year and a half, she then went back to work, gradually got reintroduced back to work, and that, you know, it was a whole other journey, you know, because she was in. Originally, she was in the control centre where they, you know, she takes the 999 calls.
Oh, right, okay.
So she was absolutely petrified that someone was going to ring up and say, you know, I'm choking. What do I do? Yeah. And I think she thought she would freeze. And I tried to say to her, you know, you are the best person now to deal with that call.
I suppose it's that dread of what if I think I would be the same.
You know.
What if I do freeze and then I'm not able to support the safety of the
absolutely, you know.
Because you're forced into that fight or flight.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And you never know which way you're going to go, do you, until you're there.
No, that's
you might be the usual fighter rather than flight.
Yeah, but in that moment,
you could just...
Yeah, absolutely.
Not be able to do it.
And I think that's the thing. We often think of fight or flight, but actually freeze is a real is a real thing that lots of us do in real panic, high emotion situations.
Absolutely. So she then changed roles within Kent Fire Service, and then it was not too much, but it was. I think she was in the wrong place.
Right.
It was just a reminder. So she came away for a year and she became a swimming teacher.
Oh,
and opposite end of the scales, but she did that for the year. But you know the income wasn't as good as what she was on now, and now you know she was always looking for a one particular job in the fire service. Right. She's now got that role.
Oh,
you
wonderful.
know, so
what is the role?
So she's a building safety inspector.
Oh, wow.
So she goes around looking at your fire extinguishers and your fire doors.
That's
but
good.
So she's obviously like training to be in that role now, and she loves it.
Exciting.
So that's good.
Know, and it's quite poignant because even when we was planning Ollie, or when she was pregnant with Ollie, she wanted to go for that job, but she couldn't because obviously
she was pregnant.
She was pregnant, then she'd have to have a year out off maternity, so she never went for it.
She decided it wasn't for her at the time.
And when it came up again, and she took it, and she was like, "I'm never going to get it." You know, she went for the interview and everything else. She went, "I'm never going to get it," and then they rang her up and said, "You've got it."
Actually, that's her job, where she's keeping people safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's making those safety decisions to keep people safe all the time, and I think again that's
reassuring.
Absolutely.
It's special because what you're doing every day as part of the Oliver Steeper Foundation is to try and keep children safe.
Absolutely, and
she's doing her obviously she's heavily involved with that, but she's doing in her day job. She's also
absolutely, and it's children
safe
as well, because children live in houses and stuff.
Absolutely.
I've said to her quite a few times, make sure they've all got LifeVacs.
So that brings us on to the foundation.
Yeah. So
how did it come about?
It's a bit of a weird one, to be fair, because when we was in London before he'd passed, we'd both said, we want to do something to remember him by.
Yeah.
And I think every single parent that's put in that position probably has the same conversation.
Yeah.
In that moment. So we said, we want to do something. We don't know what we're going to do, but it's food for thought. So then I just happened to be scrolling through my messages on Facebook, and I'd got so many messages from the press, and they like vultures.
Yeah.
Honestly, we had one, I won't name them, but we had one large organisation offering us, I think it was £5,500 to do a camera interview when we got home. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. Plus the police have told us we don't speak to anyone as well. So, but that's how, but don't get me wrong, there are some lovely journalists out there. We've got a really good relationship with some journalists now, that have been very good to us, so we built up a good reputation, and a good form of trust as well with those. So that's magical in itself, because they've done wonders for us with the charity and, and certainly with Oliver's story. But I was scrolling through my messages and I come across this one from LifeVac, and I was like. And it said, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it said, condolences, have you seen our product? And it was the only message I replied back to out of the whole time. And I just put, beep, beep. What a time to be trying to flog your product to me. I put my phone down. I just thought, cheek of it. I didn't look at the product, right? I didn't look at the LifeVac. And then we had to wait, I think it was about 8 weeks to get Ollie's body back because of the Home Office post-mortem and everything else. And the really surreal thing about that was they told us we could have 2 funerals, which to me was unheard of. So you can... 2? Yeah, you have one for the shell, the body, let's say, and then you have another one for the organs when they come back. I was like...
so you don't have to wait for them to... finish with the organs?
No, you can have 2. So it would have made the process quicker if we'd have had 2 funerals. And I couldn't get my head around that.
Gosh,
no,
I struggle with that.
I couldn't, and so I said to Zoe, we're just going to wait.
Yeah.
And luckily they expedited it for us, and it was done rather quickly. And then we got notification, obviously his body was ready, and then it came from London back to Kent. Which was the most surrealist day ever, because I was actually doing my HGV licence test that day.
Oh, good God.
And I saw a private ambulance whilst on my test, and I failed the test, put it that way. Because I couldn't do it. I'd done it that way, so
you were busy,
focused on something. But when I was not, and it probably wasn't him.
But it could have been.
But it could have been, But it kind of threw me a little bit there. We obviously had the funeral and everything, and then it was a couple of weeks after the funeral. I'm going back through my messages, deleting all the rubbish from the media and whatever, and I come back to LifeVac, and I saw it, and I got angry. I thought, I remember this. I clicked on it, clicked on the website. I watched this video, like the training, the promotional video they've got on the front, and I just sat there with my gob on the floor.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So I shouted Zoe. I said, Zoe, come up here. She thought something was wrong because I did. I was quite vocal with it. So she come upstairs and says, look at this. Watch this. And she went, that's it. If we can put a LifeVac in every single nursery in the UK, that's Ollie's mission. That's Ollie's legacy.
Wow.
I was like, okay, but how do we do that? And then we obviously looked into actually forming a charity, and to be honest, that's forming a charity is like harder than losing a child. it was
no mean feat, is it?
Such a process, and because obviously we was looking at distributing a medical device, the Charities Commission wanted everything. It took us a year to become a charity, and then. So then we said, we'd agreed with like the Charities Commission. LifeVac had its restrictions removed for children at that point, and it wasn't because there was no evidence, to support that. So they'd gained the evidence, gone through all the peer medical reviews and everything like that, and then it was available for distribution to children. So we thought, let's jump on it. Let's form the Oliver Staper Foundation. Set up this really tacky brown tree logo, looked like a clip art thing, and we rolled with it, I think it was February 23. We then got the certificate from the Charities Commission saying you're now formally a registered charity. And I was like, that's amazing. That's amazing. So then we started fundraising, and then in our first year as a charity, and I had no idea how we did it, but we raised £90,000.
My goodness.
And that provided, I think it was 1,100 devices across the UK. And we started out in Ashford, where Ollie was born and we lived. And very quickly, within 2 months, we just couldn't hold the floodgates. Gosh. Because it was just people were seeing it now, and obviously awareness through us. And we'd been all over the TV that we'd started a charity in his name, and we was getting offers to go on Good Morning Britain and all sorts of programs, to go and do it and stuff. And it just kept going and going and going, and like today, we're just under 2 years now as a charity, and we're giving out just shy of 1,400 devices now.
Wow.
It's incredible. And that doesn't include the ones that have now gone to Banana Moon either. So, and thanks to Eden for the wall mounted kits as well. That's just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, but it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, and I remember, we was trying to find a nursery to launch the LifeVac with to get the press there, and there was a nursery where the nursery was where Oliver choked. Behind that, there was another nursery called, I think it was Little Oaks, and their business suffered so much because of what happened to Oliver, because people thought it happened there because they're literally side by side. Oh gosh. So we thought, would it be a good thing if we invited them to do the launch, to try and give them some PR, some publicity back as well. So we did, and spoke to Donna, and she was like, "Yeah, let's do it. It's amazing." So we got all the press there, and on that night there was like a collaboration of nurseries that all came. There's I think they call it the Kent Nursery collaboration or whatever,
like a network.
So there was, I don't know, there's 50 odd people there came who all, to do with nurseries, and they all did the training on the night and everything, and it was so special. So special to film that in that nursery, and then that just went nationwide, all over the news. Because
and Ollie lives on.
Absolutely, and still to this day, we did a rebrand very early on to a more professional logo, and and just everything we do now as a charity, all the summer fairs and stuff has all got Ollie's face on it, and it's got to the point now where even Jake's, we say, "Jake, who's that?" and he says, "Ollie." So he knows, even though they were pretty much all the way up until 9 months, they were side by side. You couldn't tell them apart. And obviously now Jake's grown into his own face, his own face.
The wild hair.
Yeah, fortunately, yeah. It's a bit more controlled now, though. We managed to get the fly mow over it a few times a month, but yeah, it's just, and I think the charity for us, because we started it quite early on, we was looking into it quite early on, and we did get some help through a local lady who has a business that she called Dinky One Sally. So she transforms like nurseries into CICs and stuff like that, takes them through the process. So she came to us and said, "I want to help you." So that was a massive help for us, an absolute massive help. And she got us basically through the Charities Commission process. And, after that, it was just, we was like, wow, we're a charity, we're going to do it, and we're going to go for it. And we did it.
This is it. This is where the legacy begins.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And like now, looking back, it was like the grief never goes away, and one of the nurses said to me, she said, don't expect your grief to end. you learn to live with it. And that's one of the best advice, anyone ever gave me. And the charity was such a good focus for me and Zoe to create this almost like essentially now a brand,
And a positive.
Yeah.
A positive of Ollie as well.
Absolutely, and we created this brand, but it took the grief away.
Yeah.
It's not it's like a suppressor. You get so focused on doing something positive, you forget the bad that's happened. That's created it.
Yeah.
And like now, like we was at a summer fair just the other day, and there was a lady came and said, "Oh, I'm from London, and my nursery's got one of these," and I'm like, it's incredible. It warms my heart every time. Someone comes and like people walk past our stand and go, "Oh, my kid's nursery's got one of them," and I just think, yes,
it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say it, like I said to Zoe quite regularly, and we joke about it, but I never want to hear about the first time it saved a life, like one of the devices we've given out, because I never want a child to choke to have to use that. But on the same time, I cannot wait as a charity to hear about the first life we've saved, using a device that we've given out, because that will just be the epitome of everything we're trying to achieve.
And I think it's important as well to say, though, it's a last resort device.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. So
all your usual paediatric first aid.
First aid first, every time.
First, your slaps on the back, your compression, and all that.
That's it.
It's a last resort piece of equipment, isn't it?
The only exception to that rule is if they're in a wheelchair. So it's regulated where they can use it if they're in a wheelchair, and you can't get them out quickly enough, because unfortunately I think there's 2.6 billion people across the globe that don't have a standard access to standard first aid. So that's where LifeVac, is a great help for that. So, but it's such a clever little tool, so simple. But it's saved so many lives. I think it's just over 4,700 lives now saved. Nearly 3,000 of those are paediatric. It's just incredible.
Gosh, that was amazing, Lewis. Amazing. Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you.